Kirino, who lost, has to confess to the boy in class that she most wants to date. This was the punishment given to Kirino Kuryu, the most beautiful girl in her class. In her class, there is a perfect handsome guy named Fujisaki Toru, who comes from a wealthy family, has good grades, and is the ace of his club activities. The two of them belong to the same group, and I, a gloomy person who reads light novels in the corner of the class, watched silently, thinking that this punishment game was probably to encourage the two who are in unrequited love. However, the person Kuryu confessed to was not Fujisaki, but me, a gloomy mob character. I couldn't bring myself to reject Kuryu in the middle of the crowd and embarrass her, so I accepted for the time being, thinking that she would reject me at the right time, but… don't you think it's about time we broke up? Why do you say that? But we only dated as a punishment game. I love you, I'll do anything you say. So please don't dump me, it's getting really heavy.
For a lonely introvert, the content itself doesn't change much between weekdays and weekends. Will the studying be in class or extra assignments given for the holidays? During break, should I read light novels in the classroom or manga in my room? For someone who likes to go out, the only advantage of a day off is that they can sleep in for 2 more hours than usual. And yet, Mondays are always depressing. If this depression is caused by a 2-hour morning nap being interrupted, I would argue that schools should start 2 hours later, at least on Mondays. If this depression could be resolved, perhaps things like lack of motivation among students in the first class on Mondays, and increasing numbers of students not attending school, which my teachers always complain about, would be somewhat better. It would be all good. It was easy to imagine a future where a brilliant proposal made in a sleepy head would be dismissed with a country-trained argument for perseverance. Raven, get up early, your breakfast will get cold. Breakfast. Yeah, with my mother's persistent knocking on the door, I realized that I couldn't get any better sleep and obediently got up. I had kind of expected this, but my whole body hurts, it's muscle pain. This adds a sense of lethargy to an already gloomy Monday. I sighed and looked at my smartphone, only to see that I had received a new notification. It was some kind of message from the prefecture. The chat screen with Kuryu-sen still had the same rabbit stamp on it. Well, I don't think there's anything else to do, so it's only natural that there won't be any further contact. I feel like my heart is shrinking. For some reason, I don't want to go to school. I hung out with Kuryu yesterday. We studied together in the morning, then did some weight training at the hotel run by Kiriatsu, and then had lunch together. It was an overwhelmingly fulfilling holiday, even if it was just for the morning. It was interesting and entertaining to learn about the efforts that went into creating a perfect superhuman like Kuryu Kurino. I began to feel a certain amount of respect, or even admiration, for the way he lived his life. What did Kuryu think of me? I feel like I didn't get to talk much. I feel like I didn't create the same kind of fun atmosphere as I had hoped. Did they think I was a boring guy who didn't get excited even though we hung out together on the weekend? How was your table manners? I think it was a bad idea to eat first because I was hungry. I remember saying some strange things. Wouldn't they think I'm weird? Would they look down on me? I feel awkward and scared to meet Kuryu. I'm reluctant to go to school. My head and stomach started to hurt. You won't make it in time. The door to the room was suddenly opened. I feel like I have a cold, so I'm taking the day off. I don't have a fever. Did something go wrong on the date? You said you were happy and even exchanged contact information yesterday. Well, that's true, but after a day it suddenly became awkward. What are you talking about? It's about Karasu, so I think you're just overthinking it and feeling anxious. If Karasu doesn't go today, the other girl might get anxious too. I don't think Kuryu-sen is that type of person. She doesn't really think anything of me, and I don't think she cares if I'm there or not. If that's the case, then maybe he doesn't really mind making a mess. Even if he shows signs of poor upbringing or says strange things, people probably don't expect him to have any elegance or communication skills, so he shouldn't be disappointed. There's no expectation other than not making a mistake and developing romantic feelings. When I thought about that, I felt a little better. My body hurts, but I'm starting to feel like it might be okay to go to school. I tend to get sick easily, so I don't want to be in a situation where I might fail a class with just one absence, and I definitely don't want to repeat the year. Also, I don't really mind listening to lectures because they're interesting and the source material for the jokes that appear in my favorite light novels comes up. I pulled myself to my feet, my creaking body struggling to stand, and slowly made my way to the bathroom. I ate breakfast, changed into my uniform, and headed to school. Good morning, oh yeah, good morning. Numata was also at this station. When I arrived at the station at the usual time, Minami, who was sitting on a bench on the platform, called out to me. I knew that Minami commuted to school from the same station and at the same time, but this was the first time we'd been together like this. How was yesterday? We went to a hotel run by Kuryu's uncle, ate dinner, and exercised. What? Lie. Exercise. Oh no, I mean not in a weird way, but just strength training. There's a gym. Minami exclaimed in exaggerated surprise, wondering what kind of exercise he had imagined. I get a little flustered and end up making a quick, unnatural excuse. Yeah, I see, don't say it in such a confusing way. He seemed a little shaken, nodded, and then gave me a small kick in the shin. Isn't that protest digging your own grave? So did it go well? I don't know. I learned that Kuryu-san is an incredibly stoic person. Also, we exchanged contact information. He said it might come in handy if something were to happen. What, you're kidding? That's rare. Really? Yeah, Karino said she doesn't want to bring her outside relationships home with her, and her parents are strict about not having a cell phone at school, so she doesn't bring one. Ah, really? Now that you mention it, I've probably never seen Kuryu with his phone open at school. Yeah. So neither Fujisaki nor Yasumura knew Karino's contact information. I know it, and I think he exchanged it with a few other girls, but I think Numata was the only boy. That's right. Well, maybe that makes me a little happy. I think the real reason is, as he said, that he didn't want to have to go through his parents if something happened, but it still feels special that I'm the only boy who knows. I think I'm getting a little carried away. Numata, maybe you have a chance after all. That's not true. At the very least, Kuryu-san said he chose me because he didn't want people to think that way. Maybe there is, it would be nice if there was. The moment I started thinking that, Kuryu would be disappointed. I don't want to disappoint Kuryu. Minami-san, were you perhaps testing me just now? Yeah, sorry, did I offend you? Nothing really. Minami-san is a friend of Kuryu-san, so I understand why she's wary of me. Right, Numata, I think that's pretty good. What place? Think for yourself. Minami looked downcast and began to look at the scenery outside. I felt a bit confused, but also a little happy. Minami yawned softly. Good morning, Hiyori and Numata-kun, did you two come together? After talking about Kuryu on the train, we didn't have any particular conversation. We just walked at the same speed, and I thought it would be rude to go out of my way to avoid him, so I walked next to him, and then he called out to me. We just happened to be on the same train. Yes, I take a step away from Minami. Kuryu comes between us. Our shoulders almost bump into each other. I stop in my tracks, and Kuryu stops 2 steps ahead. Our eyes meet. Oh, good morning. Kuryu smiled with satisfaction. I thought he meant to say, let's go together, so I walked 1 step behind him. It would probably be a nuisance for the 3 of us to walk spread out in the street. Avoid looking at the 2 of them talking. Once you're not included in a conversation, you start to feel like you want to disappear. I feel a bit sorry that my classmates would think that I'm walking around with some of the most beautiful girls in the class. I know neither of us cares about that sort of thing. Karino, you're being too serious. Numata brought his cell phone, right? Oh no, I didn't bring it. That's true, it's prohibited by school rules and there's no need for it. How do I contact them in an emergency? There's a call from the school. Numata is serious too. Numata-kun is a serious guy. In the morning, I walked to school chatting with my friends. It might be fun, I don't care what others think. Good morning, Kuryu, Minami. As soon as I entered the classroom, Yasumura was the first to greet me cheerfully. However, Kuryu looked sullen and Minami looked away awkwardly when she saw that Kuryu wasn't replying. Good morning, I didn't tell you that. I couldn't stand it anymore, so I said hello instead, but he got half angry and started shooting me off. Kuryu sighed, exasperated. Oh no, good morning, Tanuma. Hey Numata, can't you even remember your classmates' names? When Kuryu finally spoke, the air froze. I sat down and looked away. It was awkward. Was it my fault? Well, Karino, Tai didn't mean any harm either. It seems Fujisaki-kun still likes using sneaky phrases. What does that mean? Fujisaki asked, trying hard to hide his obvious annoyance, and Kuryu shrugged in exasperation. It's bad for my heart, so I hope they don't make things tense. Well, I guess. On Friday, he called me out to the back of the gym and tried to get Yasumura to finish me off, but Fujisaki seemed to be in on it too, so I was a bit hesitant to say that. The atmosphere in the class is very bad. When a group of cheerful kids who are always in the center of the classroom having a falling out suddenly, the whole class becomes quiet. It wasn't just that Kuryu got angry and left. Yasumura was the only one approaching Fujisaki's seat. Seigo-kun is not in the classroom as he is having morning practice, and Date-san is reading in his seat. Kuryu opened a different reference book from yesterday and began studying. Minami-sen leaned her head on the desk, glanced my way, and gave me a small wave. Girls who wave when their eyes meet, it makes me happy. I feel a little excited. However, Minami's gaze, slightly lowered, looked somewhat lonely. During lunch break, Kuryu-sen rudely ignored Fujisaki-kun's attempt to stop him and sat across from me as if it was natural. Karino, can I join you? Yeah, I don't mind. The 2 of them turned to me. Since I have to give my opinion too. Yeah. I nodded and Minami-sen pulled over a nearby desk and joined them. I had lunch with 2 friends. I was happy because I'd been eating alone since I entered high school, but the stares of those around me were painful, especially Fujisaki-kun and Yasumura-kun. I've always wanted to eat with friends, sitting at desks pushed together, but with all this attention, it seems like the taste of my lunch would be ruined. If I were greedy, I'd want a nerdy guy friend with whom I could quietly chat about light novels. Kuryu's lunch is as sensible as ever, a Tupperware container filled with shredded chicken breast and various vegetables in a salad bento. Minami's is a simply designed bento box with a balanced amount of sausages, tamagoyaki, rolled omelette, and broccoli. In particular, the pink salmon flakes on top of the rice are shaped like a rabbit, exuding a certain feminine charm. Minami-sen's bento is so colorful. Is your mother making it? That's right, really, and that rabbit too. I do this myself. Just place the cookie cutter and sprinkle it on. Oh, that sounds good. I don't dislike just having pickled plums on white rice, but I get excited when they look cute, and I thought they might even make a good topic of conversation. If you put in a little effort like that, someone passing by and seeing the contents of your lunch might say, "That lunch is nice." I guess it's because they don't have the courage to talk to people themselves that it's important to make it clear that they want to be talked to. I want to start by aiming to become a Kyoto Mitsu. Would you like some sweet potatoes too? Can I eat with you too? Just as I was starting to stop worrying about the stares of those around me, I called out to him. He has a large build, a crew cut, and an accent like a country grandpa. Seigo-kun. I looked at Kuryu-san, who was slowly chewing the vegetables one bite at a time, looking uninterested. Minami-san tapped him lightly on the shoulder. "Kirino, is it okay? I have no reason to refuse." "I have no reason to refuse either," so I nod. The lunchbox Seigo took out was as big as a tiered box. The first layer contained what seemed to be 2 cups of white rice, and the other layer was a powerful lineup of brown side dishes with a token amount of vegetables. Seigo-kun lifts up the bento box with great vigor and gobbles down the meat rolls as a side dish. This is 1 serving. "You always eat this much, don't you?" "Well, I guess so. By the way, Seigo-kun, which club are you in?" I think he was a member of both the baseball and judo clubs. "I'm in multiple clubs. My dad does judo, I also played baseball. I was always a baseball fan, I see. Minami seems to like Seigo, but I wonder if Seigo came here because he likes Minami too. Or maybe there's something you want me to do about Fujisaki-kun." Minami watches in a daze as Seigo empties the large bento box in no time and drinks from his water bottle with great enthusiasm. He has thick eyebrows, deep, striking features, a large build, and a big appetite. He exudes the strength of a man. Seigo-kun finished his lunch in no time at all and opened his mouth to say something, but then he crossed his arms with a troubled look on his face. I looked at my own lunch, which was still half full. "Seigo-kun, you eat quickly. Soon is always early." "Ah, such a feeling. Chew your food well." Whenever I talk to Seigo, Minami interrupts with an explanation, and she looks like she's in a good mood. I always had the image of Minami as being somewhat grumpy, so it was interesting to see a new side of her. "What is it about Seigo that you like?" Simply put, the combination of a cool girl like Minami and a strong-willed guy like Seigo is interesting, and eating together with friends at the same table where they talk about love is a youthful and desirable situation. Seigo-kun's. Just as I was about to say that, Kuryu came into view, silently chewing his salad thoroughly. I remembered the frozen look on Date's face after he announced the punishment game. "Kuryu-san, you hated that kind of vibe." Besides, Minami-san and Seigo-kun probably aren't dating. At a stage where they haven't confirmed their feelings for each other, it's insensitive for an outsider to say anything unnecessary. That was close. I was on the verge of becoming the same person as Date-san. "What's wrong soon?" Minami-san responded immediately. It must have been because she mentioned Seigo-kun's name. "Don't you like him too much?" "No. What happened?" "Seigo-kun also urges me to go ahead. I feel like he's glaring at me. It's a bit scary. Is this what a stress interview is like?" It was good that I realized midway through that what I had said was a slip of the tongue, but now that I had lost the words I had planned to say, I no longer had anything else to say. 3 seconds passed while I hesitated. Minami-san and Seigo-kun both wait in silence. It's nothing after all, and the atmosphere makes it difficult to back out. Even Kuryu-san was looking my way. Really, I have nothing to say. However, Seigo-kun, who I hadn't really talked to, was sitting next to me, and it felt really awkward, so I just started talking about it in my own way. "I don't have anything to say, but I do have something to ask." "Well, I think he must have come to talk about Fujisaki-kun." He has his arms crossed and looks hesitant because he's also unsure how to start the conversation. This feeling is strongly conveyed in the atmosphere, making me feel awkward. I think I'm the type of person who talks more or becomes more loose-lipped when things get awkward. Silence is awkward, so I try to fill the gap by talking. However, since I'm not used to talking to people, I end up blurting out unnecessary things. It was the same yesterday, and it's the same now. He almost stepped on Kuryu's landmine by mentioning Minami's love life, and he almost mentioned Fujisaki's name, even though he had been careful not to mention it. But I don't want to bring up this topic. Honestly, Yasumura and Fujisaki were both involved with him on Friday and Sunday, so I'd like to know what kind of person he is from Seigo's perspective. I'd also like to know how Date suggested that punishment game, and what the love triangle between him and the 2 men Kuryu probably likes was like. However, it would be bad for Kuryu to hear that. Depending on what they talk about, Seigo and Kuryu might get into a fight. Minami will be worried. I'm sure Fujisaki and Yasumura would hate to have their feelings conveyed to Kuryu in this way. I think they would be very hurt if Kuryu said something negative to them. When that happens, I'm sure the one who will be hated will be me, the one who brought up the topic and drew out those words. Even if the hate were directed at Kuryu, the atmosphere in the classroom would only become more tense, and I want to avoid that as well. Even if I try to come up with something similar as a continuation of Seigo-kun's. The relationships between Kuryu-san and Fujisaki-kun and the others around him are so complicated that I can't tell where the landmines are in the related topics. I'm such a socially awkward person that even simple everyday conversation leaves me exhausted, so why am I being forced to play this hellish game of human relationships? My head is getting tired. Consciousness returns. Seigo and the others are still silently waiting for me to speak. How long have you been thinking about that? What should I do? After making you wait so long, it's even harder to say no. Numata-kun, if it's nothing, then it's nothing. When I was getting nervous, Kuryu came to my rescue. Well then, it's nothing. Why, Numata, you were trying to say something. It looked like he didn't want to say it. That's right, I didn't know that. I looked into Kuryu's eyes and nodded slightly. I was really in trouble, so I was glad that he noticed. Kirino, it seems like you've taken a liking to Numata, which is unusual for you. What do you like about him, can I ask? That's not the same as just listening to it. I like it. Well, I guess so. When I tried talking to him, I found him surprisingly easy to talk to. Why? Well, I think Numata-kun has a really good understanding of both himself and the other person. That's what makes it interesting. It feels like we're talking face to face. What is it? Nothing really. I was just a little jealous of Numata. How did that happen? So what did you think, Numata? Well, I guess I'm quite happy. I've never been told before that I'm easy to talk to, or that I feel like I'm on good terms with someone, so I don't really feel that way. But I was simply happy that Kuryu-san had given me such a positive evaluation. Fujisaki and Yasumura kept giving me stern stares. Seigo-kun is reluctant to get to the point, and I can't listen to him either. The classmates also seem to sense the signs of trouble, and the atmosphere in the classroom was heavy. But I'm glad that Kuryu thinks it's easy to talk to me. I feel a little uneasy. The light novel reading part of me is whispering that maybe there's a chance, but my objective self-evaluation tells me that there's no way that's the case, so I restrain myself. I think Kuryu just thinks that a person like me who is a total loner and doesn't normally interact with others is unusual and interesting. But even so, if you think it's fun to have at least one friend like this, then I'm happy enough. Was that showing on his face? Minami narrowed her eyes, looking somewhat dissatisfied. So Kirino, how long do you intend to continue dating Numata? What does that mean? Kuryu let out a low voice in response to Minami's words. His gaze was chilling, similar to the one he gave Date-san. He looked angry. I was so scared that my throat was dry, but Minami-san continued speaking without showing any signs of intimidation. That's exactly what I meant. There's no deadline or anything. Minami opened his mouth to say something to Kuryu, who answered with a sullen expression, but his words were drowned out by the sound of a chair falling over. How long do you intend to keep dating someone like this, Kuryu? It was Yasumura who raised his voice. I guess my anxiety was fueled by the fact that Kuryu, the man I love, gave off the impression that he liked me a little. A little behind him, Fujisaki was also crouching and half trying to stand up. If Yasumura had spoken up a little later, Fujisaki might have come over. It has nothing to do with you, right? It's not like it's irrelevant. Yasumura-kun blushed and pointed at me, but Kuryu-san didn't even look him in the eye. Yasumura was a little hesitant, but he persisted. If Fujisaki was the one you were going out with, I would have been happy with that. He's a good match for you. But what about that guy? He's a gloomy guy who always hangs out in the corner of the classroom, muttering to himself and can't even say what he wants to say properly. In reality, he's such a shut-in that he wouldn't even have a chance to talk to Kuryu. Don't assume anything without knowing anything. Numata-kun is not a gloomy or introverted person. No, I'm a gloomy and introverted person. I'm curious as to what he saw that made him think that, but judging from Kuryu's motionless expression, it doesn't look like he's joking. Yasumura-kun looked at me with an expression that said he couldn't believe it. Why are you protecting someone like that? Kuryu, you're not going to continue dating him like this, are you? At the moment, I have no plans to end this relationship. Why? Yasumura-kun looked like he was about to cry, then turned to me with a resentful look in his eyes. Hey, don't you feel anything? It's not right for someone like you to be dating Kuryu. Don't you feel sorry for him? I don't think so. Seigo stops Yasumura's raised fist. Tsunemori, are you going to protect this guy too? Violence is not okay. Kuryu and Minami looked at Yasumura coldly. You know, right, Kuryu isn't dating you because he likes you. This has only happened because of some animosity between friends. Read the situation and back off. It's not like Kirino is sulking or anything. You're sulking, otherwise you'd be doing this guy as a way of getting back at him. Yasumura, that's enough. Toru. Fujisaki put his hand on Yasumura's shoulder and then turned to Kuryu. Kirino, we were wrong, I'm sorry. Ikika didn't mean any harm, and I promise we won't do any punishment games like that again. So can you please forgive me and make up? Fujisaki held out his hand with a refreshing smile, but Kuryu looked at him as if he were garbage. Come on, Ikika, you should apologize to Kirino. Maybe he can't read the mood, or maybe he's just thick-skinned. With a refreshing smile still on his face, he turns around and urges Date-san to apologize. Date-san was biting his lower lip hard. He looked like he really didn't want to apologize. See, Fujisaki gently pushes Date's back as he slowly approaches. Date-san bowed his head, his hands trembling. I'm sorry, Kirino, it was all my fault. Yes, now we'll make up. Kirino, let's shake hands to make up. There was never a relationship between you and me that was worth repairing. What's bothering you? Didn't I and Ikika both apologize? Yes, I'm not angry anymore, so please don't worry about me. Why are you being so stubborn? Grow up. Kuryu sighed in exasperation and began to put away the empty lunch boxes. Hey, where are you going? Kuryu-san leaves the classroom without saying anything. Fujisaki tries to follow him, but Seigo stops him and shook his head. What is it, Seigo? If I go now, I'll just end up rubbing you the wrong way. Doing it now will be counterproductive. I don't know what women are thinking. If you don't understand this, you'll never make up with Kirino. With that, Minami-sen left the classroom. What's wrong with him? He's acting all high and mighty. He's just Kuryu's extra. Fujisaki just laughed without scolding Yasumura for his words. Date-san had a gloomy expression on his face and was trembling. He couldn't bear it any longer and quietly ran out of the classroom. Fujisaki-kun and the others didn't seem to notice. Neither of them seemed interested in anyone other than Kuryu. The more I get to know Fujisaki, the more I realize he has the kind of personality that Kuryu would dislike. I had the impression that they always seemed to get along well, but maybe that wasn't as good as I thought. I looked at the clock and saw that there were still 20 minutes left until lunch break. The atmosphere in the classroom is hellish. It would be troublesome if I stayed here and got bothered by Fujisaki and the others, so I quietly slipped out of the classroom. There have been many times when I wished my lunch break would be shorter so that I could go home earlier, but I have never felt that way as strongly as I did today. For a loner like me, lunch break is just a time to eat. That sort of thing only takes 10 minutes, and I always end up with nothing to do for the remaining 30 minutes. Normally I would sit in my desk and kill time by quietly reading the light novels I'd brought with me, but unfortunately today there was nowhere for me in the classroom. As I was wandering around looking for a shady spot that wasn't too far away and wouldn't attract attention, I found Kuryu-san and Minami-san. I don't think I was chasing after them or anything. However, even though it was by chance, now that I found them, I felt the urge to go out and join them again. Won't people think that's weird? I know in my head that both Kuryu and Minami are good people and wouldn't think something like that, but it still makes me feel uneasy. Suddenly, I remember a time in middle school when I joined a conversation with people I thought were talking about my favorite light novel, only to be told, oh, that's a completely different story, and I became so embarrassed that I ran away. Now that I think about it, it might be because of all those experiences that I lost motivation to talk to people. I don't intend to be dwelling on it or anything, but somehow I feel like it's difficult to leave, so I keep an eye on them from the shadows. When you're ready, go out. Forget about Fujisaki-kun. Anyway, what did Hiyori mean? So, how long do you intend to continue dating Numata? Yes, it seems like he's talking about me. I know eavesdropping is not good, but it bothers me. The reason we care about our own reputation seems to be a human instinct rooted in ancient village societies, where unpopular people were eliminated to reduce the number of mouths to feed during food shortages. It would have been the gentlemanly thing to do to leave, but I couldn't resist my instincts. I didn't mean it in a way that was bad for Numata, like Yasumura said. Well, I suppose so. So what did you mean? That's exactly what I mean. Kirino is having a physical relationship with Numata as a punishment game. How long do you intend to continue this relationship? It's not like I was forced to date Numata-kun. It's true that I thought he was the best person to date. Maybe Kirino, have you fallen in love with him? That's not it. I was a bit startled for a moment and started to get excited, but Kuryu's quick response calmed me down. But you like it, don't you? That's true. Hearing that immediate reply, I felt my cheeks relax. I know that it's not meant in a romantic way, but when she compliments me when I'm not around, it doesn't seem like she's just flattering me or just being polite, so it makes me really happy. However, I can see why people like it. I can imagine that if I misunderstood and fell in love with her, Kuryu would lose the fondness he has for me as a friend. I tightly suppress the emotions that are beginning to well up inside me. Numata is quite a hard worker. A hard worker? Yeah, the day before you went out with Kirino, you came to my shop. Hiyori's house was a beauty salon, right? Yes, it seems their mothers knew each other. But Numata is obviously not the type to dress up or anything, is he? That's true, but surely it's important to dress up before going out with others. But it's really hard to realize that you're no good at what you are now and try to change when you're full of things you don't understand. It's really hard. Dressing up to meet people may seem like a given, but not many people can actually do that. I guess so. Kuryu agreed with Minami's words as he looked towards the classroom. Plus, he said the reason he wanted to change was because he didn't want to embarrass Kirino, who walks with him. It wasn't because he was trying to attract attention or anything like that. To begin with, Numata doesn't even think that Kirino likes him. He only agreed to dating Kirino because he read the atmosphere in the classroom, but he thought that dating Kirino itself was becoming a burden. Why do you think that? Yasumura almost grabbed him earlier, and Numata is a laid-back guy, so I think he might not like being dragged into our dispute. It's fine, even if Yasumura-kun or Fujisaki-kun do something to him, I'll protect him. Going back to my original question, how long do you intend to continue this relationship with Numata, Kirino? Numata has always been honest with you. Whether you continue or end it, it would be a shame to continue treating Numata as a convenient person. There was a brief silence after Minami's words, and just as Kuryu opened his mouth, the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch break. It's time to clean up. Kuryu-sen went further in and Minami-sen came towards me. I tried to hide quickly, but there was nowhere to hide and my eyes met Minami-san's. Did you hear? Well, I just felt uncomfortable in the classroom, so I came out. Right. It's not like Kirino has any ill intentions. I don't really think it's a nuisance. When you say that, you were thinking that for a while. I look away from Minami's narrowed gaze. Well, as Minami said, I was getting harassed by Yasumura and Fujisaki and got caught up in trouble between groups, so it would be a lie to say I wasn't worried at all. Plus, I was used to being alone. It's not a lie that I long for relationships with people, friendships, and romantic relationships, but the reality is that I'm aware that I'm not suited to them. But still, it's not a lie that I want to make my dreams come true. In that sense, my relationship with Kuryu-sen isn't all bad for me. I think it was a good experience in my life to learn about the hard work that the glamorous Kuryu-sen puts in behind the scenes, and how Minami-sen taught me how to groom myself. Maybe my relationship with Kuryu-sen will soon come to an end. With Minami's words, I was freed from the quarrel with the popular group that had started with the punishment game, and at the same time, my dream position as the boyfriend of the most beautiful girl in school was also ended. I felt a sense of liberation and a little loneliness. Grey, empty youth, with no friends and only spending time reading light novels in the corner of the classroom. High school life created fond memories, even if it was only for a few days. I intend to cherish these wonderful memories for the rest of my life. Well, I bow to Minami and head to the cleaning area. After cleaning, we returned to the classroom and the 5th period began. Dateson's seat was empty. The 6th period ends and after school arrives. I looked over at Kuryu and Minami, hoping they might invite me back on the way home, but they weren't looking at me. Although I longed for the youthful event of going home together, I also felt a little relieved that I could go home alone. I was envious of the outgoing people who were always surrounded by friends, and I didn't like spending time alone. But maybe I just don't like interacting with people that much. I admire it and find it fun, but I also feel like it's more tiring than anything else. For some reason, I looked towards Fujisaki and the others. Fujisaki and Yasumura were talking about something with a girl who wasn't Dateson. They looked like they were just having a normal chat. It's a bit unsettling, but it's not something I should be interfering with. I pretended not to see it and left the classroom alone. When I feel depressed, I go to see the river. The sound of flowing water and the open view with no obstructions. If the weather is good, you can see Sakurajima, and if the water is clear, you can see fish. I usually walk straight to the station on my way home, but today I decided to take a slight detour and walk along the river, and walk over bridges that don't need to be crossed. Is the wind strong on bridges over rivers simply because there is no shelter, or is it also influenced by the current of the water? I liked the strong wind that was unique to this bridge. This wind that pushes my body forward feels like it will blow away any gloomy feelings. It is no exaggeration to say that people head to the river to soak up this wind. However, I guess I'm not the only one who likes this wind. There was a person standing on the bridge before me. He had his hands on the railing and was looking in the opposite direction from Sakurajima. He seemed quite the expert. Coincidentally, the child was wearing the same school uniform as us. It had only been a while since school ended, and I had quickly left the classroom and headed here. The fact that she arrived here before me meant that this was what she was saying. From her brown hair blowing in the wind, her short stature, and the situation, I could tell who the child was. Let's go to the next bridge to face the wind. Numata. Just as I was turning around with that thought in mind, someone called out to me. Now that I had heard it, I couldn't ignore it, so I stopped and turned around, and sure enough, it was Dateson there. Is school over already? Yes, the sun is setting, isn't it? It's true, I've been in the twilight for quite some time. As he muttered, Date's eyes were red and slightly swollen. He might have been crying. Well, you're fine, it's not like I'm unrelated. Just bear with me for a bit. WR, it's okay. Saying that, Dateson grabbed me by the collar and pulled me towards him. His grip was so strong that it caused my uniform to wrinkle, and I was led away by Dateson in a silly, bent-over position. I feel like a dog being pulled by a collar, but strangely I didn't feel bad about it. I'm a person with poor communication skills, not good at socializing, and although I want to interact with others, I always feel that it's too much of a hassle. That's why it might be easier for me to have someone come at me so forcefully that I can't say no. With these thoughts in mind, I was taken to a coffee shop on the other side of the bridge. What do you want to eat? I'll treat you. Just coffee. I see, so the drink for this Neapolitan set is a cream melon soda, and the drink for the cutlet sandwich set is coffee. Hot or iced? Hot. Okay then, and we'll have some fries and fried chicken as side dishes. I'd just like some coffee. Yeah, and my share. Hey, aren't you eating too much? I wonder if it will all fit in this tiny body. My stomach is so thin, though. After finishing our order, Dateson led us to an empty seat. There were no other customers in the restaurant, just us. Dateson, who is sitting across from me, is silent with a sullen look on his face. It's awkward. Why were you on the bridge? That's what I should have said. What I'm saying is, why did I go over that bridge? I wanted to feel the breeze on the bridge. I feel the same way. I see. Is the conversation over? There was silence again. Dateson seems like he wants to be heard, but it's very difficult for someone like me who has communication problems to get him to listen. Meanwhile, the drinks, spaghetti napolitana and pork cutlet sandwiches arrive. This is an incredible amount. This is not a chain coffee shop, but the portions are just as large as those of a certain chain coffee shop from Nagoya that is famous for its large portions. Date-san, can you really eat it all? I watch Date sipping his coffee, slurping up the Neapolitan like ramen, and gobbling down the pork cutlet sandwich with gusto. The food disappears so quickly it feels good. It's amazing how much can fit into such a small body. He gulped down the melon soda in one gulp, making a loud slurping noise. He scooped up the cream on top with a spoon, licked it, and swirled the empty glass, which was now just filled with ice. Then, Dateson let out a sigh in a showy manner. What, did something happen? You saw it, didn't you? Dateson narrowed his eyes. Yes, that's true, you saw the whole thing during lunch break, so did something happen? That's a bit insensitive. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at communicating, so in situations like this, I don't know what to say. When I clasped my hands together to express my apologetic feelings, Date blinked in surprise. Then he looked thoughtful for a moment and sighed again. I loved you, Toru. No, I still love you now. Then, after a moment of silence, he confessed something that surprised me. Date-san, what about Fujisaki-kun? Why, I'm a face person. Toru is good-looking, isn't he? Well, yeah. Well, not only is he good-looking, he's also tall, handsome, good-looking, good at soccer, and looks great during matches, and he's really popular with the girls, you know. Yeah. Date-san looks radiant as she talks about Fujisaki-kun, her cheeks flushed and her eyes sparkling. However, saying that he would calmly examine the content seemed quite superficial. However, I completely agree. Due to various issues with timing and coordination, I've only seen Fujisaki's bad side, but in reality, if Kuryu isn't involved, Fujisaki doesn't have any real flaws. As Date said, he is handsome, he is the ace of the soccer team, and I know that he is so popular with girls that chocolates overflow from his shoebox on Valentine's Day. However, what surprised her was that Date still liked him was that she was the one who suggested the punishment game. So why did Date-san try to get Fujisaki-kun and Kuryu-san together? Are you blaming me too, Namata? When asked, Date narrows his eyes and lowers the temperature. No, I don't blame you or anything, I was just curious. I mean, it's normal to think that it would be unpleasant if the person you like were to date someone other than you, right? You've never fallen in love with someone, so you won't understand. Why are you so quick to assume? So, is there one? Well, yes, there is, but what's it like? Well, I think that was when I was in the 5th grade of elementary school. I liked the girl who lent me her folding umbrella when it suddenly started raining in the afternoon, and I was in trouble because I didn't have one with me. But doesn't that mean you like me as a person? No, after that I started to think that she was cute, and I started following her with my eyes, and I started to listen to her conversations and wonder what she liked and when her birthday was, so I think I did like her. Well, in the end, we never spoke to each other. I have fond memories of buying a handkerchief embroidered with her favorite character and giving it to her as a birthday present. That handkerchief is still sleeping unopened in my drawer. Gross, that's terrible. He suffers mental damage as his secret memories of his first love are cut off. But my love and your love are different after all. Isn't that right? I've had the experience of loving someone even when I knew it would never be reciprocated. I've never thought that the girl I liked would like me back either. That's not true. Unlike you, I make sure to express my feelings to the person I like. You mean you confessed? It's not like he went that far, but I could tell without even having to. Toru doesn't even have eyes for me. He doesn't like me. Like the way he responds to my line messages after we go out together, or how he prioritizes Carino and club activities even when I invite him out for errands. It's so stupid to confess when there's no chance, get rejected, and then we can't even be friends anymore. Indeed, my love and Date-san's love seemed different. At least for me, I just watched from afar the person who caught my eye, but didn't take any action. On the other hand, Date says that the two of them not only went out together, but also used line, and even invited each other out on errands. If you've been so proactive and still feel like there's no hope, then that's probably why. In fact, Fujisaki doesn't seem interested in any girls other than Kuryu. Still, I can't imagine what Date-san must be feeling, wanting to at least be friends but unable to even confess his feelings. So who brought up the idea of a punishment game? I thought that if Toru was dumped by Carino, he might start looking at other people besides Carino, and then I'd be the one closest to Toru. Yeah, that's it. But at that time I thought Kuryu-san would go to Fujisaki-kun. I thought the same thing, but I can accept it. It would be one thing if she was stolen by some other girl I don't know, but with Carino, it can't be helped. Carino is beautiful and smart, and she'll look great walking next to Toru. Yes, well, I don't know what Karina was thinking, but instead of Toru or Yasumura, she went to you, the creepy introvert who always sits nervously in the corner of the classroom. As Date said this, his eyes looked a little suspicious. During that punishment game, did Fujisaki-kun and Yasumura-kun bite each other? Yeah, Date honestly agreed. I thought so. No wonder the two of them were so critical of me. Both Fujisaki and Yasumura like Kuryu. If either of the two, who were friends and respected each other, had ended up dating Kuryu, they would have surely said something like no hard feelings and given up. That's youth. But Kuryu-san chose what Date-san called the gloomy guy who always sits in the corner of the classroom. It would have been unpleasant enough to choose someone he didn't know, but of all people, he chose someone like me. I can understand how you feel. However, I also think it's their own fault for not considering Kuryu's wishes at all and only thinking about making their own love come true. They may have conspired beforehand, and even cheated in the game that started it all. Kuryu seems to really dislike doing such underhanded things in competitions. What should I have done? Date-san began to shed large tears one after another. Because Kirino chose you, Toru is not happy at all and won't give up. In fact, he resents me for coming up with that plan. I saw Fujisaki-kun yelling at Date-san as if he was blaming him several times. Fujisaki-kun doesn't care about Date-san, and there are better people out there. I'm sure he doesn't want me to tell him that. At least Date still likes Fujisaki, which is why he is sad that their relationship has become so strained. If I were a friend of the same sex, I might have been able to empathize, but I'm a timid, introverted person who Kuryu chose as a way to spite me, so I don't think he'd be happy or anything if he understood me. But there's something I can say too. It's okay. I don't know about Fujisaki-kun, but this relationship between me and Kuryu-san will soon come to an end. My relationship with Kuryu-san started with a punishment game suggested by Date-san, in which we had to confess our feelings to the person in our class we wanted to date the most. I'm just a nerdy guy who always sits in the corner of the classroom, but the reason I was chosen as the most beautiful girl in my class, maybe in the whole town, is because I was the least likely to make mistakes. I'm aware that I'm a loner with no charm whatsoever, and there's no way she'd like me like that. I've understood from the start that this relationship is merely a temporary one, formed when the tensions within Fujisaki's group have come to the surface, and that it will end soon. That's why I don't have any expectations of Kuryu-san, and I don't get too cocky. I'll probably be called in tomorrow or the day after and told that this relationship is over. I know this because I eavesdropped on a conversation between Minami and Kuryu. There's no reason for me to explain to Date-san the details and reasons behind it all. At best, he only tells him the fact that my relationship with Kuryu-san will soon come to an end. Date-san seemed uninterested in the details of the situation, or perhaps thought it was inevitable. As soon as I told him, he simply said, "I see, that's good," and left. Does Kuryu think that once this relationship ends, he'll return to Fujisaki's group and everything will be as it was before? But in my opinion, that's not the case. The fact that Kuryu chose me to play with as his punishment game was just a manifestation of the rift that existed between Fujisaki and Kuryu. Unless he understands that, Kuryu's heart will never turn to Fujisaki and the others, even if I leave. That being said, Fujisaki, Yasumura, and Date are all naturally extroverted. They were getting along well with Kuryu until a few days ago, so I hope things will go well again. If they don't get along, the atmosphere in the class will be bad. I got up from my seat and walked to the exit to leave the store, where I saw Date standing flustered in front of the cash register. Let's just split the bill. Apparently there wasn't enough money in his wallet. Split the bill. I don't want to, I only had 1 cup of coffee. On the other hand, Date-san was eating a huge amount of food. It would be fine if I only paid for my own share, but I'd rather not pay half of the cost of that huge meal. Alright, Date-san looks like he's about to cry. He generously said he'd treat you and then walked away looking all cool and happy, but then he said, "I don't have enough money, so can you lend me some?" Which is awkward. Since I ate with them too, I can't just abandon them and go home. How much is missing? 2,000 yen. When I looked at the bill, it was 4,200 yen. Treating someone to a meal when it only cost 2,200 yen. Well, I guess it would have been enough if Date hadn't binge eaten. I handed over 5,000 yen to the cashier. This is the pocket money my father gave me before my date with Kuryu, but I never got around to spending it. I can't do it this week, but I'll pay it back by the end of the month when I get my part-time pay. No, it's fine, I'll treat you. I didn't want to have to pay for Date-san's gluttony, but more than that, it was a hassle to have to communicate with him again in the process of getting the money back. It's actually more relaxing to treat someone and not have any hard feelings later. I'll definitely pay you back. I don't want to owe you anything. With that, Date-san finally went home. My relationship with Kuryu will soon come to an end. I went from being the lucky boy who happened to catch the eye of the most beautiful girl in my grade to being just a loner reading light novels in the corner of the classroom. It's been about 4 days since he confessed to me during lunch break on Friday. It was a time that was so intense and eventful, more so than the past 16 years and several months, and I can't believe it was still so short, less than 100 hours. I learned that the extroverts, who from the outside seemed like residents of a dazzling, distant world, were struggling with human relationships in their own way. I thought Kuryu was beautiful, intelligent, and someone who seemed to have been given everything by heaven, but I learned that she had actually been working stoically to achieve that perfection. Going out with Kuryu-san allowed me to learn the bare minimum of grooming required of a human being. This is knowledge that I would not have gained by simply reading light novels in the corner of the classroom, ignoring people, and simply watching from the sidelines. I think it was a good experience in my life. My short relationship with Kuryu-san will soon come to an end. I knew it would end someday. I'm not arrogant, nor do I expect Kuryu to fall in love with me. I'm back to being a loner reading light novels in the corner of the classroom. But then I found out. Enjoy the taste of bento while sitting across from each other and chatting. The joy of having someone talk to you on the morning train. Until now, I've been a loner, and when I see people eating their lunch while chatting, I just feel envious. But now that I'm going to be a loner again, I'll probably feel a little lonely. Going to school alone, which has been the norm until now, will now be a time of silence and stillness. Besides, I don't want to fall in love. I am well aware that I have no aptitude for romance. However, I want to know a little more about Kuryu and Minami. The next day, I was called by Kuryu-san. Lunch break and empty classroom. Kuryu stood there, waiting. She was probably just standing there like normal, but perhaps because of her beautiful demeanor or the situation of being alone with a girl in a quiet, empty classroom, I felt extremely nervous. I know what I've been called for. I don't say anything and just look at Kuryu. Kuryu opened his mouth slightly, seemed a little hesitant, and then bowed his head. This unexpected behavior makes me panic a little. First of all, let me apologize, Nomata-kun. I'm sorry for dragging you into this as a punishment game. I was dishonest towards you. And no, nothing. It's fine. Overall, being able to temporarily associate with Kuryu was a positive thing, and it would actually be more troubling to have to bow my head over something like that. So I think we should end this relationship. What is it? Kuryu was about to continue, but he got flustered and interrupted. I really feel the urge to say that it's nothing, but I feel like if I can't express my feelings here, my relationship with Kuryu-san will truly end. Even though I felt my mind go blank, I continued to form the words I had been meaning to say last night. It's true that my relationship with Kuryu-san started with a punishment game, but I learned that not only is Kuryu-san amazing, but he's also working really hard behind the scenes, and it was fun going out with him, eating lunch together, and talking on the way to school in the morning. Even though it was only temporary, our relationship as lovers will end. But even if this fake relationship that started with this punishment game ends, I want to remain friends with Kuryu-san and Minami-san and just chat with them occasionally. So, I'd be happy if you continue to associate with me as a friend. I was just about to suggest the same thing. I never thought that you would be the one to say it. Next time we'll finally see it from Kuryu's perspective. If you find this work interesting, please support it with stars and comments. I think I'm beautiful if I say so myself. My mother was a news announcer in Tokyo when she was young, and my father also has a fairly good-looking face. There is no genetic predisposition to not be beautiful. On top of that, I also make every effort to improve my appearance. Every morning when I wake up, I wash my face and moisturize, then do some light exercise before having breakfast. For breakfast, I have oatmeal and fruit. I eat slowly, chewing thoroughly to avoid raising my blood sugar level, and after I finish eating, I do my homework for the day. Studying is also important in creating beauty. No matter how beautiful your skin is or how much you improve your body shape, I feel like people who are bad at studying will always have a stupid look on their face. This is Kuryu's personal opinion. Women who are good-looking but lack intelligence are treated lightly, and taken advantage of. This is Kuryu's personal prejudice. When I go to school, I try my best to do everything I can at school. First, try to communicate with your friends. Even if you have good looks, if you are isolated, you will be seen as weak. If you are seen as weak, worthless men will mistakenly think that they might have a chance, which means they will look down on you. I'm not the type of person who would normally approach others, but fortunately I'm good-looking, so people tend to approach me. I'm not the type of person who finds it bothersome to start a conversation, but I do think I'm blessed in that respect, and I'll do my best at the event. I study hard and exercise hard. I will do my best because I believe that the memories of working hard at everything I did as a student will make me shine even more in the future. After school, if the weather invites me, I go out and play. If I have the energy, I can go to the gym, and when I get home, I study. For dinner, I try to eat mixed grain rice or porridge instead of white rice. Porridge is easier to digest than white rice and puts less strain on the internal organs, so it's good for your skin. After a short rest, I take a bath, soaking half of my body in lukewarm water. After warming up for about an hour, I do some skin care and then go back to studying. The important thing here is to avoid looking at your smartphone or computer screen until you go to sleep, as this will reduce the quality of your sleep. Sleep is the most important part of beauty. That's why I try to go to bed by 11 p.m. every day. I am aware that I have been blessed with both genetics and the environment I was born into. But more than that, I'm proud to say that I'm working harder than anyone else. That's why I didn't like the phrase, Kuryu-san is a genius. That was mixed in with compliments like, you're so beautiful, I'm jealous, you're so smart, and you're amazing at sports. This isn't a talent for me, the true genius is. It's not that I want to show off how hard I've worked, but I felt uncomfortable when people envy me for my environment and genetic factors, as if they knew everything about me, even though they didn't know anything about me. The reason I approached Numata-kun was because of the punishment game. Ikika suggested, I'm going to confess to the person in this class that I want to date the most. I knew that Fujisaki had feelings for me. He was probably just trying to get me and him together, but I didn't like him as a member of the opposite sex. His uncle and parents are close to Fujisaki's parents through their work, and he's fairly popular in class, so he's able to gather people together, and they often hold events where they all go out to play, so they often hang out together. He often makes derogatory remarks about people he thinks are in a lower position than him. He skips club activities that he seems to be doing fairly well in about 2 days a week without permission, and he has a girly side to him, like getting the agreement of people who don't seem likely to disagree before he asserts his opinion. It would have been okay if we were just friends, but I didn't want to date him. Fujisaki-kun, who had no idea that I felt that way, began to get nervous, wondering what he had misunderstood, and the people in the classroom were trying to make a spectacle of my confession. I also hated being the center of attention in this way. Anger wells up inside me. Determined to never choose Fujisaki, I looked around the classroom and saw all the boys looking around nervously, as if they wanted me to talk to them. There's no way I'd go to your place if we've never had a proper conversation. If I had the intention to do something, I would have liked someone to at least show some manliness by standing up in this situation, but there was no one like that, including Fujisaki. Sigh, if I lost the game and said I don't have a crush on anyone, I'd probably be thought of as cowardly and would be subjected to unpleasant questioning, but even so, I'd rather not date the guys in this class. Just as I was thinking about slamming my desk and raising an angry voice, I noticed a boy who averted his gaze from me, looking awkward. I think it was Numata-kun. He occasionally glanced in our direction, but he generally seemed like a quiet student reading a book in the corner of the classroom. I feel a little bad about dragging him into this, as he seems timid, but I don't want to be seen as a coward over something like this. Looking back, I think he was the only one in the classroom who knew what I was thinking, so perhaps the reason he approached her was just a slight interest. My impression of Numata was that he was a listless and shy classmate. He doesn't groom himself, has a scruffy beard, and reads a book alone without talking to anyone. Maybe he's the type of person who doesn't really like interacting with other people. I don't really understand it, but I know that there are people who prefer being alone to being with others. But after talking to him, my opinion of Numata-kun changes a little. Well, I thought it was a model-like meal. These were the first things Numata said. After sleep, food is the thing I pay the most attention to. There were people who made fun of my simple meals, but this was the first time someone had ever complimented me with such kindness. And once we started talking, I realized that Numata was surprisingly easy to talk to. He pays close attention to his surroundings and listens to what you want to say, and he listens carefully without interrupting you and nods along. Apparently, he's not the type who can't communicate. Wanting to know more about Numata, I decided to invite him out to dinner. Looking back now, I think I was hoping that Numata would praise me if I showed him how hard I usually work, like he did with his first comment at lunch. And as expected, Numata praised me, whether it's while studying or after the gym. I'll probably never forget what he said after the meal. However, the most striking thing about this outing was when I realized that Numata-kun wasn't as lethargic as I had thought. When I invited him, I was prepared for Numata to show up in his uniform with scruffy stubble, but he had his hair done and was wearing pretty decent clothes. I remember being a little surprised because they were clothes that Numata probably wouldn't own. Numata-kun's face isn't what you'd call good-looking, but when he looks good, he has a charming face. He's not exactly girly, but I thought he was pretty cute when he smiled. Also, although he gave off the impression of being shy, he was surprisingly straight when he walked and walked right next to me. It seems like they're matching my stride length, so it's easy to walk at the same pace. Maybe we were on the same wavelength, or maybe he was just being considerate. I felt a sense of comfort in the small, everyday actions, and the most surprising thing was that he completed his uncle's training until the very end. It wasn't particularly strenuous, and his uncle probably didn't want to push him too hard, but Numata doesn't look like the type to exercise. He was sweating so much that his bangs were sticking to his forehead, and was exhausted, but he still managed to get the job done, which made a good impression on me as it showed his determination to do things properly when he has to. Until now, I'd thought of Numata as a listless classmate, but it seems he could do it if he tried. He just hadn't had the opportunity until now. He's good at grooming, training, and maybe even studying if he puts his mind to it. I felt a sense of sympathy for Numata-kun, who praised me honestly, showed me respect. and was also someone who worked hard and with single-minded determination. I actually had planned to break up as soon as I got through that situation, but I wanted to continue our relationship a little longer. Kirino is having a physical relationship with Numata as a punishment game. How long do you intend to continue this relationship? Later, he is shocked by what Hiyori says to him. Come to think of it, my relationship with Numata-kun started with a punishment game. I feel comfortable in my relationship with Numata and want it to continue it a little longer, but I don't think Numata would feel that way. If Numata-kun had been someone I didn't care about, I wouldn't have minded, but in this short time, his presence in my life has grown. Hiyori's argument that we should reset this dishonest relationship and face Numata properly, just as he had done for me, was so reasonable that there was no room for argument. However, when asked what to do about our relationship from now on, I find it difficult. I have a good impression of Numata-kun and feel comfortable being with him, but that being said, I'm not sure if we will officially become a couple. It hadn't even been a week since we first spoke. Maybe we should start with friends after all. While thinking this, I wonder what I should do if Numata asks me to go out with him. I think I'm a fascinating person, if I may say so myself. I have excellent looks, academic ability, and physical abilities, and I never stop working to improve them. Numata-kun has noticed not only my appearance but also my inner self, and has often said kind things to me. Just as I feel for Numata, I'm sure he also has feelings for me. However, although it's not that Numata-kun can't socialize, he doesn't seem to like it, and he lacks confidence and is shy, so it's unclear whether he will tell me. In that case, I think it's best to start as friends and slowly develop the relationship. With that in mind, I sent a message to call Numata. It's true that my relationship with Kuryu-san started with a punishment game. But I learned that not only is Kuryu-san amazing, but he's also working really hard behind the scenes, and it was fun going out with him, eating lunch together and talking on the way to school in the morning, so, I'd be happy if you'd continue to go out with me. Numata-kun confessed his feelings to me. Although he's shy, Numata is a boy who gets things done properly when it's time to do something. Despite his cute features, he occasionally shows a manly side, and I find myself growing even more fond of him. I was just about to suggest the same thing. I never thought that you would be the one to say it. And so, Numata and I were officially dating. This time it's not a punishment game, it's a mutual love. Thus, my relationship with Kuryu ended. However, since their relationship was based on trust, with Kuryu telling him, I'm not a love interest for you, and I don't have any expectations of that, it doesn't feel like they've broken up. In fact, it had just begun. I was able to become Kuryu-san's friend. I thought that once our romantic relationship, which started as a punishment game, was over, I would lose all contact with Kuryu and go back to being a lonely guy reading light novels nervously. However, Kuryu-san said that he would remain my friend even after our relationship ended, and it seemed that if I hadn't suggested it, he would have done so. It's not like I think that's because Kuryu-san likes me or anything. This is probably because he is so loyal and merciful that he suddenly involves her in a punishment game and then says goodbye to her once he's done, saying, see you later, I'll be alone again. If that's the case, then perhaps this friendship is something akin to sympathy or obligation, but I didn't have enough self-esteem to be servile about it. High school life where Kuryu might occasionally speak to me out of compassion or sympathy would definitely be more fun than a grey high school life where I silently read light novels alone while secretly hoping that someone would talk to me. Regardless of the circumstances or process, the respect I have for Kuryu-san and the happiness I feel when he talks to me, or when we sit at the same table and eat lunch together, are my true and honest feelings. And even if it's just obligation and sympathy now, as we talk and I interact with Kuryu and the others, I'm influenced and change little by little, and there's a chance that we could become genuine friends. Their tentative romantic relationship ended within a week, but if they remained friends even if it was just by obligation, it seemed like they wouldn't become estranged until they were promoted to different classes. So next time, even after we've moved up a grade, I want to aim for a relationship where we still exchange greetings when we pass each other in the hallway, and even have a quick chat if we have time. Honestly, it's a miracle that they haven't become estranged even though their relationship has ended, but once that happens, they'll want more, and human desires have no limit. If it gets to the point where they end up wanting a relationship where they can exchange New Year's cards even after they graduate. The trust that I don't expect Kuryu to be a love interest probably still remains, and if I become greedy, we might become estranged before we even change classes. Again, let's not get too cocky. Good morning, Numata. As I was trying to calm my rising excitement so as not to get too carried away, Minami-san, who had arrived at the station before me, called out to me. Ah, Minami-san, good morning. Kirino called you yesterday, right? Yeah, what happened? Well, our relationship that started as a punishment game has come to an end, but I asked her if we could continue being friends and she agreed. That's right, thank you. Why is Numata thanking me? Well, that's what Minami said to Kuryu. I've been working hard on my appearance, so Kuryu-san told me to face him properly and end this dishonest relationship with a punishment game. Somehow, I felt like I was being recognized as an individual, and I was a little happy. But this is something I overheard, and it's not like he said it for my sake, so I feel like it would be weird to say thank you and keep quiet. Minami seemed to have finished asking what she wanted to know and was looking outside in a slightly sulky mood. Good morning, Numata-kun and Hiyori. When I arrived at the nearest station to the school, for some reason Kuryu was waiting for me. Oh, good morning, Kuryu-san. Why are you at the station? Well, it's because I was waiting for you, of course. Kuryu said as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I assumed you were referring to Minami-san, but your gaze was clearly directed towards me. So you came to pick me up. Yes, let's go to school together. Saying this, Kuryu-san holds out his hand. What money? You're not the type to ask for it, are you? His eyes were clearly fixed on my hand. I held out the hand that wasn't holding the bag. Kuryu-san intertwined his fingers and took my hand. Is this like holding hands as lovers? This is only natural in our relationship, right? In our relationship. In other words, in our friendship. Does Kuryu think that holding hands is natural? Kuryu's fingers, which were sandwiched between my fingers, were thin, cold, and soft. The last time I held hands with a woman was on a field trip in first grade. Even then, it was just a normal hold, not one where our fingers intertwined like this. What do you mean? The light novels I've read are fiction, so they exaggerate the depiction of holding hands, but is it actually normal for friends to hold hands? I didn't have any friends, so I don't understand Kuryu's intentions. I worry about the gazes of those around me. I feel embarrassed, uncomfortable, and awkward. I lost confidence and slowed down, causing Kuryu to slow down as well. When I relaxed my grip on him, he gripped me tighter. Anxiety makes your stomach churn and your back arches a little. Hey Kirino, isn't this punishment game relationship over? Yes, I finished it properly. Right, hey Numata, Kirino and Numata, you two became friends, right? That's what I expected, but... Minami-san asks in a low voice while looking at my connected hands. On the way to school, people wearing the same uniform look at me strangely as I hold hands with Kuryu. After all, it seems that holding hands, just because you're friends, isn't a given. It makes me feel sad. Rather than feeling happy or embarrassed, I feel out of place and unsuitable and guilty. I feel like strange sweat is running down my hands, and if that's not normal, I want to let go. But I don't have the courage to shake him off and push him away. Why did Kuryu-san decide to hold hands with me? I don't think she misunderstood when I said I want to be friends, as I want to be romantically involved. First of all, I'm sure I said as a friend, and even if she didn't hear that, there's no way Kuryu would have agreed if she thought I meant it as a lover. In the first place, Kuryu had replied, I was the one to ask. So why? I studied Kuryu's expression, trying to figure out his true intentions. At that moment, my hands were forcibly torn apart, then my chest felt tighter. Right before my eyes was Yasumura's face, red with rage. Numata, don't touch Kuryu with your dirty hands. Numata, don't touch Kuryu with your dirty hands. Yasumura-kun's red face at close range, the spit on his face, his ear-piercing angry voice. Because he was being held up, the hem of his uniform was loose and the button threads were stretched. Above all, for some reason, my hand was forcibly released from that of Kuryu-san, the most beautiful girl in the school, and although it was a terrible situation to say the least, for some reason I felt a little relieved. Let go, Yasumura-kun. And please don't touch Numata-kun with your dirty hands. The cold, low voice he used during the punishment game had the power to make Yasumura-kun loosen his grip. Kei Kuryu, what's going on with someone like that? Didn't we just break up? Why on earth are you holding hands? Well, that's because he and I are dating. And no, that's just like a punishment game, right? No, it's true that it all started with a punishment game, but that relationship ended yesterday. After that, Numata-kun confessed his feelings openly, and I accepted it. And no, that can't be. Yasumura-kun looked back and forth between me and Kuryu-san with a look of mixed despair and shock on his face. As for me, this was the first time I had heard Kuryu's story, and I was so surprised I couldn't even speak. I look at Kuryu to see what he really means, but his profile looks completely serious. What does that mean? It's true that I told Kuryu-san that I wanted to go out with him, as a friend, but it definitely wasn't like I was confessing my feelings or anything romantic. Why is this, Kuryu? Why did it have to be this guy and not me or Fujisaki? First of all, please don't get the wrong idea. I wouldn't be in a romantic relationship with you guys even if it wasn't for Numata-kun. Besides, Numata-kun doesn't look at me with any prejudice. He tries hard to overcome the things he's not good at. He's earnest and brave. At the very least, I'm not the kind of person you'd mock and call that kind of guy. Let's go. Saying that, Kuryu-san took my hand. I heard a loud thud as Yasumura-kun collapsed to his knees. I guessed his true intentions from the situation and Kuryu's words. To begin with, part of the reason I was asked to play that punishment game was because Kuryu didn't want Yasumura and Fujisaki to hit on him. Even if our relationship went from temporary lovers with no idea when it would end to just friends, that wouldn't change. Besides, Kuryu is popular. Not only Yasumura and Fujisaki, but other boys would surely be constantly courting him. In that case, it would probably be more convenient for Kuryu to continue their temporary romantic relationship. To be honest, my memories of that time are a bit hazy, as I'm filled with tension, anxiety, and a variety of other thoughts, but I think I prefaced it by saying, just like before, the relationship between me and Kuryu-san is no longer a punishment game. However, Kuryu-san continues to talk to me as before, and I act as her temporary lover to keep her safe. Our relationship is truly the same as before. I feel like I'm not strong enough as a loner, but considering the effort it would take for Kuryu to find someone who wouldn't mistakenly think they might fall in love with him, I'm a pretty good fit. At the very least, I have a track record of never getting cocky during the punishment game period. If that's the case, it makes sense that Kuryu said, I was thinking of proposing it myself. My relationship with Kuryu-san is no longer a punishment game, but a mutually beneficial cooperative and friendship. It feels right. At the very least, at that moment, it seemed much more realistic than the absurd story of I forgot to mention the as a friend part, and Kuryu misunderstood that I was asking him to be my girlfriend, and for some reason accepted it. In that case, what is required of me now is the bare minimum of work as an insect repellent. I straighten my hunched back and quicken my pace. If I appeared unsure, it would embarrass Kuryu-san and weaken the insect repellent's effectiveness. Kuryu-san smiled at me as I finally regained my senses. Apparently, this is the correct answer. Minami Hiyori's prospective Kurino was someone I admired. She's more beautiful and stylish than anyone else, and above all, she has a noble heart. In middle school, when a boy called me ugly because I was plain, Kurino slapped him instead, which was how I became friends with her. During her middle school years, Kurino seemed more reclusive than she is now and had fewer friends. Kurino also had her own reasons for thinking about this, as after entering high school she stopped being harsh towards boys who flirted with her, but she still hated men to begin with. Moreover, Kurino is quite self-conscious. To avoid giving the wrong impression that he has feelings for the opposite sex, I have never seen him exchange contact information with them, and he doesn't touch them. In fact, he rarely even goes out of his way to talk to them, so I was surprised when I got off the train and found Kurino waiting for me at the station, and even more surprised when she and Numata started holding hands. Huh, you two are dating. Numata said we became friends, but was he lying to me? Why would he lie like that? I don't understand. I looked at Numata as if to ask what he meant, but he seemed confused as well. Isn't our punishment game relationship over? Yes, I finished it properly. Kurino and Numata have become friends, right? That's what I expected, but neither Kurino nor Numata seem to be lying. To begin with, Kurino isn't the type to hold hands with someone she doesn't like, even if it's a punishment game or something. In other words, Kurino really does like Numata. When did this happen? Numata knew that Kurino liked him, but he never thought that she would like him as a member of the opposite sex. So if we sort out the situation, we can only arrive at one answer. Numata supposedly said to Kurino, let's be friends, but for some reason Kurino misunderstood and thought he meant, let's be lovers, which is why we're in this situation. If that's the case, then it all makes sense. Even though they're making a huge mistake, the two of them don't seem to notice. What should I do? Should I tell him since I noticed? No, that's not good. I feel a little sorry for Numata, who wasn't ready to date Kurino, but Kurino probably really does like Numata. If I say something unnecessary and get in the way, Kurino might resent me. If I was in a good situation because of a misunderstanding with Tsun, and Kurino told me the truth and the situation was resolved, I would be angry too. I don't dislike Numata, but more than that, he's Kurino's biggest ally. Sorry Numata, I know it's going to be difficult, so I've decided to support him as much as I can. Date Kazuka's perspective, I see, so Kuryu is breaking up with her. Yeah, probably. Numata said he wanted to end this relationship. I see. Well, I guess it settled down the way it should. When I told Numata what I had heard, Toru smiled in high spirits. He looked as handsome as ever. However, even though he is aware of my feelings, he is obviously happy to hear that Kurino will be going free again, which is a bit amusing. But it's a little better than it was before, when things were always so tense. Then Kurino and Numata enter the classroom, holding hands. Teeth, my voice and Toru's voice overlapped. Hey date, what's going on? Weren't they supposed to break up? I don't know. However, we know that Kurino is very guarded, even refusing to exchange contact information no matter how much Toru and Yasumura ask. That's why they don't hold hands as a punishment game or anything like that. So are the two really dating? In stark contrast to Toru's face, which was distorted with anger, a faint look of joy appeared on my face. Holding hands with Numata, Kurino looked at his face and clearly had the look of a girl in love. Kurino really does like that guy. Date, what's going on? Well, I feel refreshed. That doesn't make sense. You said you wanted to break up. Toru's harsh voice was filled with anger. Toru was born as the eldest son of a wealthy family, and although he is good-looking, smart, and wealthy, his only flaw is that he is not kind to girls. Also, seeing Kurino holding hands lovingly, Numata, who had previously seemed like just a boring, introverted guy, starts to look a little bit better. Now would be a good chance to target Toru, but, well, you know. Speaking of which, I remember that I had promised to pay back the money for the meal Numata treated me to at the cafe the day before yesterday, and I start thinking about what to say to invite him out.